A tanker moves through the dark, its engines low and constant, its steel hull cutting a path through a corridor that feels too tight for something this large. Radar pulses quietly. Lights flicker across distant vessels. On either side, the coastline rises in silence, rock, shadow, and the suggestion of watchful presence. And yet this is not just a passage. This is a trigger. If this corridor closes, even for a single day, what happens next? Today we move through the Strait of Hormuz, experienced as a system rather than a line on a map, rebuilt through records, routes, and the logic of the water itself. 8 stops, from stone and wind to oil and war. Each step narrows the space, each moment tightens the stakes. This is the Strait of Hormuz, not as legend, but as pressure. A narrow seam where geography, energy, and power lock together, and where a corridor barely over 20 miles wide carries the weight of the modern world. 3 forces shape everything here. First, the land, a gulf with only one exit. Second, the resource, oil and gas in volumes too large to ignore. Third, the tension, states, empires, and fleets pressing against each other in a confined space. And always in the background, a quiet possibility that does not need to happen to be feared. Closure. Stop 1. The water narrows. You watch the coastline draw inward as the ship advances. Mountains rise dry and jagged, their surfaces stripped of softness. The sea that felt open begins to compress, guided into invisible lanes. Other ships appear, slow-moving giants, each keeping distance yet bound to the same path. No one deviates, no one rushes. At its narrowest, this corridor tightens to just over 20 miles. Inside that space, 2 shipping lanes carry vessels in opposite directions, separated by a thin buffer of water. Everything must pass here. Every tanker leaving ports in Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq, Iran, Qatar, Bahrain, and much of Saudi Arabia is funneled into this same strip. There is no second route waiting beyond the horizon, no hidden alternative. The consequence settles slowly. This is not just a crossing, it is a filter. And anything that happens here, anything at all, moves outward. So how long has this narrow space been pulling the world through it? Stop 2. The older sea. The ships are smaller now. Wood replaces steel. Sails take the place of engines. The water is quieter, but the movement is constant. Cargo shifts from hand to hand. Copper, timber, stone, textiles, each piece carried across distances that stretch beyond sight. The coastline is dotted with small ports, each watching the passage, each taking its share. By around 2600 BCE, this route is already alive. It connects Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, Persia to the wider ocean. Goods move steadily, not in massive quantities, but in enough volume to matter. The same pattern repeats. The water narrows, the ships slow. The crossing becomes visible, and visibility invites control. The consequence is simple. You do not need to own the ocean. You only need to stand at the point where it tightens. And once that is understood, power begins to gather. Stop 3. The empires arrive. The coastline hardens. What was once a route becomes something guarded. Watchpoints appear along the shore. Fleets begin to move not just for transport, but for control. Under the Achaemenid Empire, this corridor became part of a wider imperial network. Ships are guided, the coastline is held. The passage is no longer neutral. In 325 BCE, a fleet of Nearchus under Alexander the Great sailed through these waters, proving that this is not a fragmented route, but a continuous line. The sea connects, the path holds, and once a path is proven, it can be claimed. The consequence shifts the meaning entirely. This is no longer movement. This is ownership. And ownership does not stay uncontested. Stop 4. The island. The water opens slightly, and a city rises ahead. Not on the mainland, but just off it. Hormuz. Around 1300, its rulers moved the city from the mainland onto the island, turning it into a controlled maritime hub. The harbor is crowded. Sails cut across the horizon. Goods move in every direction. Silk, ivory, ceramics, pearls, each item small enough to carry, valuable enough to protect. The air is thick with salt and trade. Voices overlap. Deals are struck quickly, enforced quietly. This is not a city built by accident. It is placed between the Gulf and the open ocean, between movement and destination. Every ship that passes slows here. Every cargo is seen. Every transaction is counted. The object that defines this system is not a ship, not a weapon, but the port itself, a checkpoint in water. The consequence is precise. Control the island, and you do not chase trade. Trade comes to you. But then the horizon changes again. The ships that arrive next do not come to trade. Stop 5. Fire on the water. They appear heavier, darker, carrying something different. Cannons. In the early 1500s, Portuguese ships enter these waters with a different intention. They do not settle into the rhythm of trade. They break it. They attack. They build. They fortify. Stone rises along the shoreline. Walls face the sea. Guns point outward, not as a warning but as a statement. This is not a negotiation. This is control enforced. For more than a century they hold this position. Ships pass under watch. Trade continues, but it is no longer free. Then, in 1622, they are forced out. A combined effort pushes them back. But something has already changed. The lesson does not leave with them. The consequence remains long after the walls begin to weather. A narrow passage can be held. And if it can be held, it can be controlled. The scale of that control is about to expand beyond anything seen before. Stop 6. The shift. The year is not marked by ships, but by what comes out of the ground. Oil. In the early 20th century, it begins to flow in volumes that change everything. The goods that once passed through this corridor, small, valuable, limited, are replaced by something else. Fuel? The ships return, but they are no longer wooden. They are steel, massive, slow. Each one carries millions of barrels, and each one must pass through the same narrow corridor. In 2025, an average of about 20 million barrels per day of crude oil and oil products moved through this space. The number does not need explanation. It simply sits there. Heavy. The consequence follows immediately. This is no longer about trade routes. This is about energy. And energy does not move quietly. It attracts attention. It attracts risk. And eventually it attracts conflict. Stop 7. The war moves in. The sea changes again. The ships are still there, but now they burn. In the tanker war phase of the Iran-Iraq War, especially from 1984 onward, tankers were struck. Mines threatened shipping. And from 1987, U.S. escorted convoys tried to keep traffic moving. The corridor does not close, but it becomes dangerous, and danger changes behavior. Ships hesitate, routes shift, prices respond. Navies arrive, not to own the water, but to keep it open. Escorts form. Mines are cleared. Encounters happen in moments, fast, tense, unresolved. The rule becomes clear without being spoken. You do not need to block this passage. You only need to make it uncertain. The consequence moves far beyond the water. The world begins to feel the pressure. This pattern is reconstructed from records, logs, and modern data. We do not see every moment, But we see enough to understand the structure, and the structure does not change. Stop 8. The present. Night again. The corridor is lit only by distant signals and the glow of instruments. Other ships move in parallel, each following the same invisible path. Warships track nearby. Small vessels move quickly in the shadows. Above, systems watch constantly. Around a quarter of global seaborne oil trade passes through this space, along with a significant share of the world's liquefied natural gas, especially from Qatar. Most of it moves east, toward cities that depend on its arrival, without ever seeing where it comes from. Alternative routes exist, but only Saudi Arabia and the UAE have operational crude pipelines that could bypass the strait at meaningful scale. And even then, the available capacity is only about 3.5 to 5.5 million barrels per day. The consequence remains fixed. This corridor cannot be removed. It can only be managed or threatened. What happens here does not stay here. A delay becomes a rise in price. A risk becomes hesitation. A disruption becomes a chain reaction. The effect travels outward, through markets, through systems, through lives that have no connection to this water, except dependence. This is not just a place, it is a pressure point, a narrow line where geography, resource, and power converge, and where the cost of disruption is paid far beyond its edges. The ships keep moving through the corridor. The system holds, but it holds under pressure.